In the history of transportation, this thing will always have a special place. The Model T put automotive travel within reach of the masses. The car for everyone. It also did a very good job of handling the bumps in the road in the days before superhighways. But how things have changed. Transportation evolution charges on. In 1994, to handle the bumps in the road, you can't beat one of these babies. Stand by for the Score Tecate Trophy trucks. They're exciting, dramatic, and fast, but they're definitely not for everyone. This is the Mojave Desert, which dominates the American Southwest. A lot of adjectives describe this place: lonely, desolate, foreboding, rugged, bone dry, and hot. Hello, everyone. I'm Dave Despain outside breezy Barstow, California. It seems no matter where we go to cover motorsports, whether it's midgets at Indianapolis Raceway Park, the GP motorcycle road racers, or those who race out here in the desert, that there are two themes throughout the world of motorsports: the men and the machines. Perhaps my brain is addled by standing out here in the heat, but I think those two themes take on a special meaning here at the edge of this great desert, which for so long stood as a monumental barrier to the settlement of the American Southwest. They say that someplace out there you can still find the wagon tracks of the Conestogas, driven by those brave and determined pioneers who first crossed this desert. Later came the railroad tracks, built by an amazing breed of working man, tough enough to do his job in this awful desert heat. Those tracks are the reason Barstow, California exists. This is a railroad town. Fast forward through 100 years of transportation history, and note that the brave adventurers who fly the space shuttle cross this desert in a matter of seconds and then come down to Earth just a few miles away at Edwards Air Force Base. On this edition of Speed World, a special breed of men and machines will tackle the Mojave. The men are part pioneer, part astronaut. Fearless and determined adventurers, certainly not afraid of a little hot, hard, and dusty work. And their chosen means of desert transportation, $250,000 technological wonders known as Score Tecate Trophy trucks with state-of-the-art suspension and 700 horsepower. You know, a lot of things have changed between the Conestogas and the trophy trucks, but one thing has remained the same out here in the desert, and that is the heat. Climbing toward 120 degrees as we approach the start of this race. Now, to tell us more about the men who face a hot afternoon's work, let's call in Steve Wise, who will analyze the action today.
As hot as it is out here, none of these trophy truck drivers can afford to play it very cool. This should be a great race, and all eyes will be on the first man off the start line, Roger Mears. Mears showed at the last race, the Baja 500, that this new Chevrolet truck is very fast. For the first time in his 30-year off-road career, Roger gets to start at the head of the pack. That may prove to be quite an advantage.
There's definitely an advantage to being first off. When the wind's blowing like it is today, it's not as great as advantage as if the wind wasn't blowing. If the wind wasn't blowing, it would be a giant advantage. Because you just dust everybody out and you can spread out, get you a nice big lead. When the wind's blowing, it's still an advantage, obviously, because you won't have the dust to deal with at all, where the guy behind you will a little bit, but not real bad.
Roger, by the way, has a big doubleheader this weekend. He won't be kicking back at the lake once this heated battle is over. He'll cool off by shifting gears and hustling over to the high altitude of Colorado for the Pikes Peak hill climb. Helping him stay focused on today's race will be the Ironman, Ivan Stewart, in his Toyota. Ivan eventually caught up with Mears and won the Baja 500, his second win of the series. And you want to throw in a wild card? How about this one? Robbie Gordon, who lately has been pushing the likes of Nigel Mansell on the IndyCar circuit, comes back to off-road to chase Mears and Stewart. His Ford is starting at the back of the pack where he can see the rest of the field and make a few passes along the way. And we can't forget John Swift, who quietly has climbed to the top of the trophy truck's point standings without a win, but with solid finishes. He has a brand new Ford Ranger, and he says it's a hot one.
We gave it a good shakedown here a couple of weeks ago at a shorter desert race, and we won it overall just by testing. And And so we're happy, we're confident with the car that it can hold up today, and we're not going to try to do anything spectacular. We're just going to go out and run our pace, make sure the car's happy at the pace, and try to be there at the finish.
And speaking of finishes, there are two here today. The cars, the buggies, the light trucks, and the bikes all ran this morning. They come streaming by the checkered flag. That means the desert course will soon be clear and ready for the big iron of the SCORE Ducati Trophy Truck Series. Stand by for the starting lineup and the start of the Fireworks 250 on ESPN. Speed World exclusive coverage of the Fireworks 250 is brought to you by Toyota Motorsports, where technology on a fast track is built into every Toyota car and truck you buy. And by Goodyear, #1 in tires. The desert outside Barstow, California awaits the arrival of the trophy trucks. And what a terrific race we're anticipating. The second in our ESPN coverage of this series. The first was the Baja 500. Here's Steve with a recap.
The 1994 edition of the Baja 500 turned out to be a race of surprises. The first surprise came just minutes after this start, when the current points leader, Paul Simon, had to park the truck because of mechanical problems. That left things wide open for the rest of the eager field, and Walker Evans admitted he was caught a little off guard when he realized Jim Smith was making a move so early in the race.
I've never experienced anything like that in all the time that I've been running down in Baja. Did you see it that way, Jim?
Well, yeah, you know, it's coming down the highway, and Walker's truck kept getting bigger and bigger. Of course, nobody I'd rather pass than my friend.
The next surprise was the strong running of Roger Mears. In only its second race, Mears' new Chevy truck set a blistering pace for the rest of the field. Equally surprising was the performance of John Swift's old Class 6 truck. This was expected to be a retirement run in which John would nurse the old gal around the course in order to pick up a few points. Despite an extended stop in the pits to fix some A-lane shocks, Swift battled Ivan Stewart most of the day for second behind Mears. The Ironman, of course, was not a surprise. This is, after all, the Baja 500, and as everyone in off-road knows, Ivan always wins it. Despite some mechanical problems of his own, Ivan eventually caught and passed Mears. A few minutes later, so did Swift. For Ivan, it was his fourth overall Baja 500 win in a row. Swift settled for second-place points, and even Mears had something to celebrate, the confidence that his new truck could be and would be a factor in this new trophy truck series.
That was a month ago. Today, Walker Evans and his co-driver get that last cool drink of water before their hot day's work as they prepare their Dodge-powered assault on the Fireworks 250. There is Rob McCaffrey. Now, he is the defending champion in this race, and out to make it two in a row. Steve, tell me about the course.
It's a tight course, Dave. This really helps the pit crews. They get a lot of looks at the trucks. If there are problems, they get to them pretty quickly, pretty easily.
If you saw our Baja show, you know about pre-running. It's the driver's opportunity to look at the course ahead of time. Baja, you can go do that anytime you want. Here, on public land controlled by the Bureau of Land Management, pre-running is a very controlled environment. There's just one session, there are speed limits, and you really have to follow the rules of desert conservation here. So the guys are perhaps a little less familiar with the specifics of this course. The man who will lead them off the line for the first time in his 30-year career, Roger Mears. They draw for starting position. It's the first time this veteran off-road racer has been able to start up front, and he's excited about that opportunity. Awaiting the green flag, there it is, and at 2:30 p.m., Roger roars off the ramp and out into the desert to kick off this 250-mile confrontation. You see a bit of dust coming up from the back of the truck. That's a very big issue. Starting second, John Swift.
He won Class 6 in this race last year and the current points leader in the Trophy Truck Series.
John Swift debuting his brand new Ford today, coming from third starting spot. Bob Ritchie, the RCR Racing entry, co-driven by Tom Baker, and that's another Ford.
Jim Smith is 46 years old from Buena Park, driving a Ford F100. His best finish, a 5th place at the San Felipe 250.
Next up, the Simon brothers, and they are Paul Simon, not the one who sings, and his brother Dave Simon, and they share the driving duties. Each will drive half the race here this afternoon, another Ford.
Next up, 55-year-old Walker Evans. in his big Dodge. He was third here last year in this race. Best trophy truck showing this season was a fourth at the Nevada 400.
Off-road legends back-to-back. Ivan Stewart, the winner of the Baja 500, will come from 11th starting spot, the Precision Preparation Incorporated Toyota. Mike Leslie Racing has a co-driver here today as he brings the Jeep from 8th starting position. Steve Kelly will share the driving responsibilities.
Scott Douglas has won this race in a mini pickup class last year. He has no top 5 finishes this year yet in the big trophy truck.
Larry Ragland joins Mears in carrying the Chevrolet hopes, drives for the well-known Nelson & Nelson Racing team. He'll have to catch up today, coming from 10th starting position.
Rob McCachran, 29 years old from Las Vegas, last year's overall winner. He's also won this race in a buggy in the past. He has 2 seconds and a fourth. He's second in the points this season.
We didn't see Keith Jackson at Baja, but in the season-opening Parker 400, he was a strong 5th in an independent Chevrolet, the Castex Racing Chevy.
Next up, Robbie Gordon, 25 years old from Anaheim, the Indy driver, finished 5th at his only trophy truck race this year, the Nevada 400.
Late entry today, starting last will be John DeVito. That's the Pro Comp Racing truck that kind of an odd-looking beast. Looks a little like a monster truck. And that is your starting lineup here. Mears is already underway. Swift is next. You remember his quote, "Don't do anything spectacular. Set a steady pace. Make it to the finish." Remember those words when we come back. In the hot and breezy California desert, point leader John Swift's determination not to do anything spectacular lasted less than a minute. Look at this from a trackside fan cam. That brand new truck goes end over end. A spectacular and early end to the day for Swift. Fortunately, he's okay, being helped out along with his co-driver. And, hey, this one was easy to cover. We were right there. Took about 30 seconds from the start for things to get exciting for John Swift. What happened out there? Anyway, a brand new truck. You've certainly beat it all to pieces. How did it happen?
Well, we got off to a rough start. The car felt good, and I don't know, it kicked up on this last bump, and when it came down, the front bumper dug in, and it kicked it over. So it's just part of racing. You just got to take it, and we'll go back and we'll get it all fixed up, and we'll be at the next race.
When you're in an area like this where there's still a lot of people around, were you concerned about that? Did that thought cross your mind, or were you just hanging on?
Well, the spectators were staying back, so I don't think we got any close to get anybody, but it is a concern. I mean, it's a tight area, and we were, at least we were taking it relatively easy through there. But just one of those things. You're working out a new car. You find things that bite you.
Dave, on the replay, it's difficult to see really what happened here. I'm sure Swift's people are looking at it as well, but talk about impacting a points race. Here's the points leader going out early. That will hurt.
A very, very frustrating and disappointing day for Swift. Meanwhile, Roger Mears does exactly what he hoped to do. He jumps out in front, but remember, this race is all about corrected time. The trucks start 30 seconds apart. The winning time is he who covers the course the quickest. So as you make up, for example, a portion of that 30 seconds, you may be behind the truck in front of you physically, but ahead of him on corrected time. Bob Ritchie right now is 1 minute and 15 seconds behind Roger Mears, and he has been caught by Paul Simon, who has already passed the Smith truck. And look out, he is way off to the edge of the road. I think he might have been looking for a pass there and almost got himself into trouble. We go on board with Walker Evans now, and we've got cameras all over this truck. This is the view out the windshield if there were one. There is, in fact, no windshield. Here's the astronaut-looking view from the face cam. And we're also going to give you a look at where all those bumps and bangs come from. We have a suspension cam on the right front, and here you get a real sense of the beating that these things take.
Well, this is the angle I like the most, Dave, because it's hard to believe the punishment these trucks go through, and even though it looks like they're bouncing around, it's a pretty smooth ride, generally speaking, for these guys. They hardly notice it.
Mentioned on the Baja show, we went for Ryan Walker's pre-runner, and he said, hey, driving one of these things just like sitting here in a big old mush bucket. Well, I guess we have different opinions of what a mush bucket might feel like. Look at the beating that Ivan Stewart is taking. He is 2 minutes and 15 seconds behind Mears physically. That is the actual separation. if you stood trackside with a stopwatch. Later on, we'll get corrected times, but here you see what this mush bucket looks like. He's getting bounced around pretty good, I'd say.
This Barstow course is a real rough course, and a factor we should talk about today will be the tires. Last year, the race was decided by who had the fewest flat tires. McCackern Leonard, he only had one flat, but the second place truck had two flats. That were the Simons.
Mike Leslie is 3.5 minutes behind Mears, and he's being chased here by Scott Douglas in the second of the Dodges. That is the team truck to Walker Evans, who you saw earlier, and here comes Douglas, the B10 Dodge, lots of horsepower, new trucks, and plagued by bugs in Baja. They're hoping to keep them intact and fast here today, and for the moment, they look to be in very good shape. Larry Ragland, 4 minutes behind Mears, Chevrolet powered, and again, early in the race, a lot of position battles still shaping up. The guys not only feeling out the course, but also feeling out the guy that they're running with. In this case, it is McCackern, who is chasing Ragland and, in fact, running him down. 4 minutes and 3 seconds behind Mears as they go by our stopwatch right here, the defending champion in the race. And the easy up onboard camera with a good shot here from Keith Jackson's viewpoint, the Castex truck. Man chasing him at this moment. Woohoo, and there he goes right by in a spectacular pass. It's Robbie Gordon. Robbie never hesitates. He'll go for it.
He didn't need much of an opening, and you can see there wasn't much to go on, but he just rode along the rim and cut in front of him.
Robbie's running an old truck here. He described it as bringing a sword to a gunfight. I think it's a little difficult to see the difference from trackside as it goes by. It looks like it's working pretty well, but that's a big, heavy truck, and he's building a new Takati Score Trophy truck out of his own pocket because he likes this kind of racing, and he says it'll be state-of-the-art. As we thunder toward the commercial break with Ivan Stewart, it's early in the race. The first 5 are all bunched up, and they've all covered the first 20 miles quicker than Roger Mears. He's fallen out of the top 5. He has trouble. We'll find out what's going on when we come back. Off-road racing success, nothing new to the Mears gang. In 1972, the winner of this race was Rick Mears, who went on to one of the most storied careers in motorsports history. Today, his brother has trouble. Let's eavesdrop on the radio and find out what's going on.
I got my shifter is acting up. I don't want to mess with it, but I'm just letting you know that take note the thing, I have to shift it 3 or 4 times to get it to do anything. 10-4.
Through the wonders of technology, we're able to eavesdrop. The transmission, of course, is to the crew, and the transmission in the truck appears to be the reason that Mears has fallen from the lead all the way back to 6th on corrected time. But remember, he is still first on the road. Meanwhile, Rob McCackern comes charging through the desert, and there's a bit of a misleading picture. He looks like he's running wide open.
Well, he does look like he's going pretty quick here, but as I mentioned earlier, the problem in this race will be tires. The rocks out here very sharp, and last year he won this race by only 24 seconds over the Simons. He had 1 flat, they had 2. Walker Evans had 4 flats. That was the difference in the top 3 finishers.
Lo and behold, look who McCackern is racing here today. That is Simon, thundering by one of the spectator areas, all 4 wheels and tires intact, and he is at full speed as he goes charging along here, making good progress. Mike Leslie in the only Jeep, well, I think he has a problem here more serious than flat tires. They have stopped for what looks like it may be major repairs to the Jeep, and the difficulty appears to be with the suspension. Leslie had a pretty good start here, but it didn't last very long. Let's see if we can get the report from the driver on what's going on.
We blew a right rear shock, and when we blew the shock, it gave us a flat and stuff. So right now we're running with just 1 rear shock.
Mike is optimistic at this point, Dave, but I don't know. Shock problems out here can really spell trouble. This is a very bumpy course, and the rest of the truck might just vibrate apart.
A lot of things could go wrong out here in the desert. Keith Jackson and his co-driver not having a dispute here over the air conditioning. There are no air conditioners on these trucks. The onboard fire extinguisher has gone off, and you get the view from the Easy Up onboard camera. Well, we have a view for now. We may not have a view for long, as it is spraying back right on the lens. Through all these developments, the new leader on corrected time is this guy, romping and stomping across the desert as he has for so many years. Walker Evans leading the way. Suspension pounding. He says he loves coming out here to run, and so does everybody else.
This is a racer's race course. And why is that? Because it's got width, you can pass, it's wide open, hard running. There's not any sand to get stuck. There's not river bottoms to have to forge or anything like that. The terrain averages about 2,500 foot in elevation, but it is hardcore running. The pitting is very close where you can have pit vehicles all around, and so everybody runs just wide open, and that's what makes Barstow a great course.
You know, every time you talk to Walker about desert racing, he says the same kinds of things. He loves wide open and hard running. Unfortunately, his teammate has a problem. Scott Douglas has come in for an unscheduled repair on this truck, and the preliminary indication is it is electronic. Back there near the right rear of the truck, you see somebody going inside. There are electronics all over this thing. The computer that is part of the engine management system is actually back here in the right rear, and from the sound of the engine, I think that may be part of the problem.
Well, this must be the 90s, Dave. You know, you got a big, fast truck out here, and you have to have a computer whiz on your team these days just to keep it going, apparently.
Listen to the engine. Yeah, you can hear the misfire breaking up badly. The engine itself is strong. The big V10 can make 700 horsepower, but not when the computer fouls up. Stewart, meanwhile, flying, looking back to see who's behind him here. He's checking his mirror up there on the right side. That's what he's looking at. He's trying to figure out, he knows there's somebody back there. He knows there's somebody coming, but he's having trouble figuring out who it is. So he gets a little help from another technology he calls the crew. Yeah, okay, now I know. No Garfunkel anywhere inside. I bet he gets tired of Simon and Garfunkel jokes. Paul Simon closing in on Ivan Stewart and running very, very fast. Meanwhile, Robbie Gordon, who learned to race right out here in the desert, well, he takes an unusual line right there. But before you start second-guessing Robbie Gordon, note that he has come from 13th starting spot to run 4th. It's an incredible charge. There's your leaderboard. We'll have more of the Fireworks 250 right after this. Speed World coverage of the Score Tecate Trophy trucks brought to you by the new Dodge, a division of the Chrysler Corporation. Back in the desert, the leader has stopped. Walker Evans has parked his truck. John Cyril, the co-driver, climbs out for a tire change. That thing Walker's holding in his lap so they don't lose it is actually the big lug that holds the spare on. And here's the problem. That right front that is being changed right now is the second flat tire that Evans and company have had. So they have not only fallen off the leaderboard, they are now out of spares and will have to take perhaps a more conservative approach until they're able to limp back and replenish the supply of spare tires. As Steve alluded earlier, flats are a big problem on this particular race course. Up front, it is Roger Mears first on the road, second on corrected time, doing double duty this weekend. He's also going to climb Pikes Peak, as Steve told us about earlier, and he's continuing the family racing dynasty in Bakersfield, California, at this state-of-the-art race shop where the trucks are being prepared. It is very much a family scene because Roger's two boys. There's Casey underneath the truck, and there's Roger Jr. himself, a pretty decent race car driver and a man with a great deal of versatility. He is more or less the lead mechanic on Dad's trucks when he's not racing himself. And he races a lot of different kinds of things. Here he is in the alternative fuels speed competition at Bonneville last year. He went 200 miles an hour. Here he is leading in his pickup in the Stadium Truck Series. In fact, he's out front, and Dad's right behind him in the second Budweiser truck. And look how Dad gets treated here while the kid goes off and wins the thing. Roger talked with us before the race today about his goals in motorsports, and they take him off in a little different direction.
Right now, concentrate on the Stadium Series. I've just this year came on with a stock car, a late model stock car. I'm having a lot of fun with that. It helps fill in the gaps in between all of my desert racing and stadium racing. So that's where I'm really wanting to lean towards. I'm really having a lot of fun with the stock car, and I'd like to get out there and mix it up with all those guys someday.
Dave, he says if given the choice on a Saturday afternoon, he'd rather watch the NASCAR guys than the Indy guys. He loves that kind of race.
Look for him someday in the Daytona 500. Roger right now preparing for the mandatory pit stop that we'll see a little later. It's an element of stock car-like competition borrowed for this form of racing. Meanwhile, Ivan Stewart, the leader on corrected time. Things look great, but all is not well. Once again, let's listen.
Ivan, this is Gary. Go ahead. Ivan, when you get a chance, can we have some temperatures, please?
The question is about temperatures. The answer, hot. High temperatures. This truck is overheating, a problem for the leader on corrected time. Now, he's still second on the road, but let's show you how this works. Stewart started 2 positions behind Paul Simon. That's 1 minute. He is now in front of Simon. He's made up that minute, and Simon's trailing him by 11 seconds on the road. So the corrected time interval there is 1 minute and 11 seconds. I hope that all makes sense. Mears has fallen to 3rd on corrected time, and Robbie Gordon is 4th on corrected time, having started this race in 13th position. A very impressive charge. Here is Rob McCachran. He is 5th, 2:27 behind the race leader. We want to find out more about Robbie Gordon. I had a chance to spend some time with him pre-race this morning. We started our conversation of the question, why go IndyCar racing?
The reason why I picked IndyCar racing over stock car racing is because I had a hero that you could look at and relate with that came from off-road racing. So that was someone I could set my goals at and say, yeah, I want to be like Rick Mears.
Versatility and the ability to learn very quickly seem to be 2 of the key traits. I mean, you can drive any kind of race car and seemingly just kind of jump in it and learn it overnight. Why is that?
I've been very fortunate. I don't know why that is, and I definitely don't want to lose that because it's something that's a major advantage as far as being a race car driver. But I think the off-road, it taught you a lot of car control because the car jumps away from you. So it doesn't matter if you're in a stock car or an Indy car, the cars get away from you, and you got to save them. And that's the whole key. And you know, I think here in the dirt with the inconsistent terrain and everything, that it taught me a amount of car control that you couldn't learn anywhere else.
You're far enough along in your career, I would think now, to recognize that, and maybe you've known this all along. I mean, maybe it's instinctive to believe this, that you're going to be successful. I mean, you're going to be a big star wherever you choose to try to go. Are you going to stick with the IndyCar thing, or have your goals and dreams and aspirations changed any?
Well, they've changed a bit. You know, IndyCars are going real well right now, and I can see myself there for another 1.5 years, 2 years. And I'd like to ultimately go over to Formula One and get an opportunity over there. But it's got to be with the right team again, and you got to have the right equipment and support behind you. Or else I'm better off staying here with a good team in IndyCar racing and trying to win races and championships.
What is it about that series that seems to be as far from the desert as you can get? Why go there?
Well, you know, Formula One racing will always be the world championship, and that's something every driver dreams of having. And you know, I don't know if I'll ever be able to get one, but I definitely want to go over there and give it my best shot. You know,
you were saying a moment ago that so many kids that want to be racers dream of the luxury suites and the high buck weekend and hanging out with the IndyCar gentry or the stock car gentry or whoever. And you say it's nice to get away from all that and come back here. Why?
There's not many chances you get to come out here and race against yourself in the desert. You know, this is a race against nature and the man. And if you can beat the beast out here, you've done something. You know, we work really, really hard setting up our cars and making them durable. And if you can run 250 miles at Barstow or 1,000 miles down in Mexico, you've done your homework. It's as tough as any endurance race or any Indianapolis 500.
Well, here's one class I don't think Robbie's tried to run in yet, Dave. I'm not sure what class this is.
I believe that is our favorite from the spectator fleet here at the Fireworks 250. We'll be back with more. Yeah, it's hot out here. The dog days of summer in the California desert. The mandatory pit stops begin as the first truck on the road, Roger Mears brings his Chevrolet in. We mentioned that this was borrowed from stock car racing. It's a mandatory stop for tire change and fuel and anything else they want to do to the truck. Top teams do it in about 30 seconds. This one is about 10 seconds in and appears to be pretty much routine. There you see evidence of the heat. He's hosing himself down, but it looks like this is going well, although not particularly quickly, Steve.
And we have to remember the rules for these mandatory pit stops. That is only a certain number of pit crew members over the wall, just enough to change the tires and gas it. Anything more than that, and you suffer a 15-minute penalty. They don't want to run into that if they can help it.
The earlier transmission difficulties that Roger reported, not serious enough to be worth incurring that kind of a penalty to make any sort of repairs here. For the moment, Mears losing a good bit of time, I suspect, here in the pits. About 46 seconds on the stop, about 15 more than he would like. And Stewart is probably going to have the opportunity to gain some additional ground here on the pit stop. In fact, he's on his way in.
Ivan is looking for a good, clean pit stop here, something that's very important if he wants to continue to lead the race. And fortunately, we had Dave right on hand to see what happened.
Ivan Stewart is second on the road, but first on corrected time. He's leading the race. As the crew go over the wall, the attention is on the front end of the car because he's reporting some periodic overheating. So down at the front end of the car, they're opening up the grill work to let more air in. They're also doing the routine tire change and fueling, but the effort being made is to get more air to the engine. An intermittent overheating problem for the leader on corrected time, Ivan Stewart. Quick stop, he's out of here. A cold drink killed the engine, but he's underway.
There you see his time, 31.6 seconds. So he did pick up time on Roger Mears on that pit stop. He's got a long ways to go, though, as you can see, as he heads off into the desert. He can't even see the dust of Mears ahead of him, but he knows he's out there somewhere.
There's a picture that really gives you a sense of what this place is all about. Simon and Simon come charging in. Paul will come out of the driver's seat. Dave will go in. They'll swap co-drivers in the process, along with changing the tires and refueling the truck, and they'll be back underway. Defending race champion McCachran comes in, plagued by flat tires early. He is charging back into contention, and they go to work. You know, some of the guys use air wrenches, some do it the old-fashioned way.
Well, whichever way you're probably quickest with or used to, and in this case, I guess they prefer to do it the old-fashioned way, and it looks like they're moving along pretty well.
The Ford Rough Riders, of course, very prominent in off-road racing, and one of the Ford drivers is going to come in without his hood. You saw the big Valvoline decal sail skyward. A comparatively minor problem, I would think, for Robbie Gordon, who has burned up this racetrack from 13th to 4th on corrected time, and he comes in hot for his pit stop. This kid doesn't do anything slow. He's always charging.
Well, Robbie's never seen a pass he doesn't like, and he likes to pass people. That's why he doesn't mind starting back in the 13th position. He's made up a lot of time. The field's in front of him. He's coming in for his mandatory pit stop. He looks pretty nice and cool there today.
You can see his helmet is equipped with an air supply, and a lot of the guys will use the cool helmet to try to keep the temperatures under control here. We noted at the top of the show it's about 120 degrees. That's a pretty nice, comfortable temperature to be out there in your fire suit changing tires. I guarantee you that's a whole lot of fun.
Looking down pit road, Dave, there's Walker Evans coming in for his pit stop.
And they will replenish his supply of spare tires. The tire problem is what has dropped Walker from leadership in this race back to 6th spot. And the kid in a hurry heads out of the pits. Robbie Gordon back underway in that big old truck that he hopes will carry him to a top 3 finish here today while he awaits the arrival of the new machine still being built. The California desert is the scene. Ivan Stewart's Toyota is the leader. We'll be back with more of the Fireworks 250 right after this. Hey, if you're headed for Barstow, jump off at the Victorville exit for a quick trip to the Roy Rogers and Dale Evans Museum. You'll see all of the pictures of this great Western hero, Trigger, in the flesh, right off the pages of Life magazine. Buttermilk is there too, but hey, this is a motorsports show. We don't have all day to spend here. We did want to show you a quick shot of Roy's ride, although for the desert race, I think I'd go with Nellie Bell. Meanwhile, out here in the desert, Roger Mears needs a new ride. Roger is at work on his Chevy truck. It's not the transmission problem we talked about earlier. There's Dad Bill Mears shaking his head. They have broken the transmission in the truck. Big hammer repairs are underway. Let's find out what's going on.
We're just happy as heck. This thing is so fast. I hit a rock right back here, straddled a rock in the road, and it bent the transmission pan and blew the transmission. So we're having to change the transmission and get going again.
Yeah, minor roadside repair. Just slap a new transmission in that baby and keep going. And here you see the work. Roger's handling the light work. He's still got to drive the truck today, so he's taping up the body panels, letting the other guys swap the gearbox out. Meanwhile, the Castex Racing entry goes flying by and picking up a position. Boy, you talk about a fun job. How'd you like to be doing this, Steve?
Well, the good news is it happened pretty close to their main pit, so they could get a lot of guys out there real quick with the new transmission to take it apart and put it in. Yeah, that's amazing to me. You can change one of these in a race and still think you're going to have a chance to at least place high enough to get some points out of it.
Well, there is a painful irony in this story. Roger's got a smile on his face as he talks to his dad, and they watch the Leslie and Kelly Jeep go by because Roger assumes pretty soon they'll be done with the work and he'll get back underway. They changed the transmission and then realized that the mounting struts, those massive brackets for the front suspension, were both cracked from the pounding that ultimately broke the transmission. So they fixed the transmission and then dropped out of the race. So Roger jumped in the airplane and headed for Pikes Peak, Colorado. We told you it was a doubleheader weekend for this versatile member of the Mears gang. He comes here fresh from the desert to go racing in a stock car, a locally owned car for this unique 14-mile trip to the top of the mountain, and that's a big change from what he was doing yesterday, eh?
Well, this is a fun race for these guys. The Unters and the Mears are both known for running at Pikes Peak, and Roger's done it for years. His son Roger Jr. has been in it. His dad has run in it. In fact, all three of them ran in it last year in separate vehicles. It's a heck of an adventure. I've been there. It's one of the few chilly spots you can find on July 4th, Dave. I've been at the top, and you can see some snow up there.
Hey, you live in that neck of the woods, and I'm a little jealous. I can tell you that after you ride across the desert on your motorcycle, a trip to the top of Pikes Peak is a nice way to cool off. The local heroes in the stock car division came out on top today. They're Bobby Register and Leonard Baschholtz. They're as big a legends on this mountain as Roger is in the desert. Here's Roger taking the checkered flag. The overall winner was Rod Millen, shattered the track record, and he is the teammate in the stadiums of this guy, Ivan Stewart, who is doing his best to break the record today for the Fireworks 250, despite the fact that his desert Toyota is looking a little like a stadium truck. He had a flat. It ripped the left side bodywork off. They're accustomed to having them look like that in the stadiums, but that's a little unusual out here. And just as I say that, we see another example of it.
Well, this is some of the stuff that rips those side panels off is when you come around the corner. Dave Simon here now in the truck of the Simon & Simon race team, doing pretty well. I guess if you're a sponsor, you want to stand on the side of the truck that still has all the panels still on it.
That's the important thing. Get it back to victory lane with some sort of sponsor logo intact so that when you make all the publications and papers, they'll be able to know what brand won, because indeed this is a brand battle out here. And today the Dodge hopes in the hands of Walker Evans looking pretty good. He's worked his way back up to fourth after a spate of flat tires had dropped him off the leaderboard early, but he has a challenger. Larry Ragland in the Chevrolet is chasing him down. This is the battle for fourth and fifth, and they are separated by just a few seconds. Factory team involvement, a big part of this game. This factory Ford is in trouble. That is Robbie Gordon. He has dropped out of the race. Yeah, hi, Bob. Hi, Robbie. Not today. Tough luck for them. They have broken the left front suspension on the truck. Youthful exuberance carried them into a rather hard collision with a rock, and Steve was there to find out more specifics about the problem and also about the prospects for the future.
All right. Okay, Rob, you were running really well through the second lap in through the pits. What happened?
Well, we were just kind of riding along for the first half of the race, and we were going to see, where we were for that last lap run. But at the bottom of this hill here, we broke a bottom ball joint. We've had problems with them before, and we're just going to finally go and put kingpins on the front of this truck.
Well, you came out here not on a lark. I mean, you like to run out here, but did you have fun today, if nothing else?
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. I was really surprised we were competitive as we were. This truck's a lot heavier than the other trucks. We'll have a new truck out here real soon, and it's about 2,000 pounds lighter than this truck, and it just make a world of difference.
Are you disappointed today, or do you think you got something out of this race anyway?
We're disappointed. You know, we've been really fighting this truck here, but we can't wait to get our new one.
All right, rumor has it that the old truck, the big old heavy truck named Roseanne, is headed for the Roy Rogers Museum for a space right beside Nellie. No, just kidding. Chevy of Larry Ragland comes to a proverbial mechanical fork in the road. The truck goes right because the left front tire goes left. Obviously, a little bit of a control and handling problem, and that, I would imagine, did a fair bit of damage. Fortunately, out there in the middle of the desert, our Steve Wise was right on the scene to get the story from Larry.
Were you pushing, trying to make up some time, or just trying to?
Yeah, they just told me the McCracken was 2.5 minutes in front or something like that. So I decided, what the heck, we go ahead and try. And that's what happened. Probably should have just taken it easy and settled for wherever we were running at.
You done now?
No, we'll get it fixed. We'll finish it. We'll finish it. Be a little while.
And as we watch Brady Styles effect repairs, two things come to mind. One, there's a man in need of a bigger hammer. And two, I wonder what they did when the wheels fell off those Conestoga wagons. I wonder if there was a Brady Styles there to help out. We're back at Barstow, California. The late going of the Score Tecate Trophy Trucks Fireworks 250. You're riding with the Easy Up on truck camera as the pilot Keith Jackson puts the truck through its paces. We're down to just 8 vehicles running of the 13 that started. Attrition has been a big story here. We talked about perseverance. Keep going, fix the truck, and keep moving, and you can score some points here today.
Well, Steve Kelly needs those points. He's in the points battle in the top 5. In 4th, he's now back in the truck, having taken over from Mike Leslie.
That's the lone Jeep in the field. They survived an early problem with the suspension. John DeVito, who's Chevy S10, the independent Pro Comp truck, a late entry here today. He's still running as we get to the late going. Ivan Stewart has more problems with the body panels. I guarantee you they're worried whether that thing will still say Toyota on the side of it when he gets into victory lane. But look at the right front wheel. That is the bigger problem. He apparently has a suspension difficulty. Let's listen to the radio.
Grease or something big time. Anybody up here that can look, make sure we don't have a major trouble in the back of this car. Oh, we got a shock that's blown out.
A blown shock, a correct diagnosis of the problem with the right front. But, Steve, I think his initial concern was with the back of the car.
Well, he's looking out that rearview mirror again, Dave. Obviously, he can see that back end flapping around. He thinks that's got to be causing some problems with the vehicle. Even though it may not be, he wants to take a closer look at it.
And now the question is, should we stop this close to the finish and bring it in, or just go ahead and limp home? The Toyota crew have elected to stop and check the truck. Let's listen.
Ivan, I'm up here when you turn to the right. Just pull up to where you see the chase truck. Turn left. Just come straight ahead.
Let's make a quick decision, because I might be able to beat him to the finish line.
A racer never wants to stop. They always want to keep going. Keep in mind, they've got trucks, they've got support crews, they've got helicopters overhead, all focused on helping this guy get to the finish. As he makes his stop, Rob McCackran, now 3rd on corrected time, coming on strong after a fuel pump problem, but he's going real fast.
He's had actually the fastest lap of the entire field for the day on his 2nd lap, so he's made up ground quickly. Here's Simon and Simon. Dave Simon still behind the wheel.
And they are running 2nd on corrected time, so McCackran is trying to catch them. Simon would, if he knew this were happening, hope, I guess, that this stop would last longer. He doesn't know it's happening. And Ivan's stop did not last very long. They checked the truck. They said it'll make it to the finish. And they have sent Ivan Stewart on his way to the checkered flag, which is now just a few miles down the road.
You lost all the oil, so it's just bang around a bunch. Everything was in place, so just back off your pace a little bit. You'll be okay.
Roger.
Ah, yeah, I'm happy now. Let's ride with Ivan Stewart. This is what he calls backing off the pace.
Yeah, he's going slow here, huh? No way. He's going to push it all the way. They finished 11th in this race last year. They're determined to get a win here today. This is rough stuff. Let's watch and listen as he goes through this.
What a ride. And no gloves. 4 hours and 12 minutes after he started, the shock broken, the body panel flopping. Ivan Stewart takes the checkered flag. and kills the engine. He has won it. We'll be back to talk to him right after this. Speed World coverage of the Fireworks 250 brought to you by Toyota Motorsports, where technology on a fast track is built into every Toyota car and truck you buy. And by Goodyear, #1 in tires. The hot day's work is over. #1 for the second time in a row here on ESPN. Ivan Stewart, winner of the Baja 500, comes back to win the Fireworks 250 over Dave Simon. McCaffrey, the defending winner of this race, comes home third. Ragland and Kelly are fourth and fifth. Let's go down to victory lane and hear from the very happy winner of the race, Ivan Stewart. No birthday cake. Other than this, it's pretty much the same story as Baja. You drive into victory lane, a winner of 2 in a row. Congratulations, first of all.
Well, thank you, Dave. We did have a good day. The truck ran fantastic, other than we broke a shock right the last 5 miles out. And I had one flat tire, my fault. Smacked a rock out there that the size of a refrigerator, so we can't blame the tires. BF Goodrich held up fine. Truck worked great all day.
A little bit of excitement earlier on, obviously, from the damage on the left side of the truck, but I gather that wasn't too devastating in terms of how it affected your race strategy.
No, we had a flat. When I had the flat, it tore apart and ripped off the fender. So that's where that damage came from. But some of the guys are running pretty strong. In the beginning, Walker was strong, Simon was strong. We knew that Rob McCacken was going to be fast, and he chased us in right at the last here even. So, kind of the same guys that you got to watch for all day. They were there, and then they'd fall off, and they'd there and fall off. So it was a good race, huh?
Career win number 78 for Ivan Stewart. Well, a good race today, Dave, although this flip here certainly flip-flopped the drivers' point standings.
John Swift with a big tumble in a brand new truck will be playing catch-up. He's fallen all the way out of the top 5. Rob McCacken takes over the point lead from Paul Simon, and Ivan Stewart climbs to 4th place in the rankings by virtue of his second straight victory.